Hey there, I'm so glad you're here with me today. You know, life has a way of moving so fast that we often don't notice the little moments slipping by until they're gone. And sometimes we don't realize just how precious those moments are until it's almost too late. Today, I want to tell you a story. It's a story about love, about loss, and about a goodbye that stays with you forever. It's the kind of story that makes you think about the people you've loved, the ones who've touched your life in ways you'll never forget. Hazel and Gus, two people who met under the most unlikely of circumstances. Both knew their time was running out, yet in the time they had, they managed to find something real, something that despite everything could never be taken away. Imagine that, two people drawn together by fate. They didn't have much time, but what they had was meaningful. Every laugh, every word, every touch all felt like a gift. Even though the clock was ticking, their love never wavered, and in the face of the inevitable, they held on to each other, to their love, to the belief that what they shared would last forever. Today, I'll share with you Gus's final letter to Hazel. It's a letter filled with love, with sadness, and with the kind of promise only love can give. Even though their time together was so brief, Gus left behind a piece of himself in this letter. And what he wrote, even in his final days, was a love that would never fade.
So, as the days passed, Hazel couldn't help but think about Gus more and more. It wasn't just the way he made her laugh or how he saw the world with a kind of quiet optimism. It was the way he made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, alive. For the first time in months, Hazel felt like she wasn't defined by her illness. Gus didn't see her as someone broken or sick. He saw her as she was, a person with hopes, dreams, and fears. They spent long hours together, talking about everything and nothing. Gus didn't try to fix her problems. He simply listened, something Hazel hadn't realized she needed so much. He gave her the space to be herself, without the weight of expectations, without the constant fear of what tomorrow might bring. In those moments, she didn't feel alone anymore. But even as their bond grew stronger, Hazel couldn't ignore the fear that lingered in her heart. She knew the clock was ticking, and no matter how much they tried to ignore it, they were running out of time. The thought of saying goodbye to Gus one day, it felt like an impossible weight to bear. Sometimes, the hardest part wasn't the disease or even the pain, but the fear of what was coming. Hazel could see it in Gus's eyes. He tried to hide it, to act like everything was fine, but she knew he was scared. And so was she. The thought of losing each other, of being forced to say goodbye, felt like a cruel fate neither of them deserved. As the days passed, it became harder to ignore the reality that was knocking at the door. They both knew it was coming, but neither of them wanted to say it aloud. And yet, it hung over them like a cloud they couldn't escape. One evening, as they sat together, Gus turned to Hazel and spoke in a quiet voice. "I'm not afraid of dying, Hazel. I'm afraid of leaving you behind. I'm afraid of not being there when you need me the most. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible, and I don't know how I'm going to let go of you when the time comes." Hazel could feel the lump in her throat. She wanted to tell him that everything would be okay, that somehow they would beat the odds. But deep down, she knew better. They didn't have forever. All they had was the love they shared in the time they had left. And that, she realized, was enough. It had to be enough. Sometimes, the changes are so subtle you don't even notice them at first. Gus had always been so full of life, so full of energy. His laugh, his smile, the way he would joke around, making Hazel forget, even if just for a moment, the world outside. But lately, Hazel noticed the shift. His energy was starting to fade. He was more tired than usual, and there were moments when his gaze seemed distant, like he was lost in thought, far away from the present. Hazel tried to ignore it, telling herself it was nothing, maybe just the stress of everything they had been through. But deep down, she knew. She knew something was changing. Gus wasn't as strong as he used to be, and she could feel it in the way he held her hand, the way his touch had become gentler, more fragile. It wasn't just Gus. Hazel could feel her own body weakening as well. Her strength, which had once carried her through each day, seemed to be slipping away. She could feel the weight of it all, the constant fatigue, the ache in her bones. And there were days when even the thought of getting out of bed felt impossible. The fear of losing him of losing herself was more real than ever. But the hardest part was knowing that they couldn't stop time. They couldn't make it last forever, no matter how much they wanted to. Every moment, every laugh, every touch felt more precious than the last. And all they could do was hold on to it, knowing their time together was slipping away, piece by piece. Maybe that's why Gus had started writing letters he never thought he'd have to write, letters that he would never be able to say aloud. Hazel had been the one to bring light into his life when everything seemed so dark, and in those final days, he wanted to make sure she knew how much she meant to him. In his last letter to her, he wrote, "Hazel, I know we don't have much time left, and I can't change that, but I need you to know this. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of what's to come. What I'm afraid of is not being able to say everything I feel, not being able to tell you how much I love you, how much you've changed me. You've made me feel like I'm worth something, like my life has mattered. You've made me feel more alive than I ever thought possible." As Hazel read the letter, tears welled up in her eyes. She had known, in the deepest part of her heart, that Gus had always loved her, but hearing it, seeing the words written down, made everything feel real in a way it never had before. He continued, "And even when I'm gone, Hazel, I want you to remember one thing. My love for you will never die. It will live on in everything we've shared, in every moment we've had together. And when you need me, when you're feeling lost, I want you to close your eyes and remember, I'm always there, in your heart, in your soul, forever." You know, there comes a point in every journey where you have to face the truth that no matter how much you wish for time to slow down, it doesn't. The truth that no matter how hard you fight, there are some things you just can't change. Hazel had been dreading this moment, but she knew it was coming. Gus was getting weaker, his body no longer able to keep up with his spirit. The vibrant man who had filled her life with laughter and love was slowly fading, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. But even as his body betrayed him, Gus still fought to stay present, to be with Hazel. He didn't want to leave her, not yet, not when there were still so many things he wanted to say, so many moments he wanted to share. But the fight was no longer his to win, and Hazel, though devastated, stayed by his side, holding his hand, talking to him, as if their world hadn't changed at all. She whispered to him in the quiet of the night, telling him everything she couldn't say during the day. She told him that she loved him, that he had given her a life worth living, and that she would always carry him with her in everything she did. And though he was too weak to respond, she could see in his eyes that he heard her, that he understood. The days grew shorter, the nights grew longer, and Hazel knew that the end was near. But in those final moments, she didn't feel anger or regret. She felt a quiet peace. They had loved each other, fully without holding back, and that was all that mattered now. After everything they had been through, after all the laughter, the tears, the moments of pure joy, the time had come for them to say goodbye. Hazel knew it wasn't going to be easy, but she also knew that saying goodbye was a part of life, a part of love. She had always believed that love was a bond that transcended time, that no matter what happened, love would live on in the hearts of those who experienced it. And now, as she sat by Gus's side, holding his hand for the last time, she realized how true that was. Love didn't die. It couldn't. Gus's breath had become shallow, but even in his final moments, he smiled at her, a smile that had always been so full of life. "Hazel," he whispered, his voice weak but filled with love, "I'll always be with you, in your heart, in your soul. You've given me everything, and I'll never forget you. Not now, not ever." And with that, Gus closed his eyes, his final breath slipping away quietly. Hazel held his hand, not wanting to let go. She stayed there, just a little longer, as if hoping he might wake up, hoping for one more moment, one more kiss, one more chance to say the things they never had the time to say. But she knew deep down that their time had come, and in that moment, she promised herself she would live for both of them, for all the moments they had shared, and for the love they had given each other. It would never fade, it would never be forgotten. You know, there comes a point in every journey where you have to face the truth that no matter how much you wish for time to slow down, it doesn't. The truth that no matter how hard you fight, there are some things you just can't change. Hazel had been dreading this moment, but she knew it was coming. Gus was getting weaker, his body no longer able to keep up with his spirit. The vibrant man who had filled her life with laughter and love was slowly fading, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. But even as his body betrayed him, Gus still fought to stay present, to be with Hazel. He didn't want to leave her, not yet, not when there were still so many things he wanted to say, so many moments he wanted to share. But the fight was no longer his to win, and Hazel, though devastated, stayed by his side, holding his hand, talking to him as if their world hadn't changed at all. She whispered to him in the quiet of the night, telling him everything she couldn't say during the day. She told him that she loved him, that he had given her a life worth living, and that she would always carry him with her in everything she did. And though he was too weak to respond, she could see in his eyes that he heard her, that he understood. The days grew shorter, the nights grew longer, and Hazel knew that the end was near. But in those final moments, she didn't feel anger or regret. She felt a quiet peace. They had loved each other fully without holding back, and that was all that mattered now. After everything they had been through, after all the laughter, the tears, the moments of pure joy, the time had come for them to say goodbye. Hazel knew it wasn't going to be easy, but she also knew that saying goodbye was a part of life, a part of love. She had always believed that love was a bond that transcended time, that no matter what happened, love would live on in the hearts of those who experienced it. And now, as she sat by Gus's side, holding his hand for the last time, she realized how true that was. Love didn't die, it couldn't. Gus's breath had become shallow, but even in his final moments he smiled at her. A smile that had always been so full of life. "Hazel," he whispered, his voice weak but filled with love, "I'll always be with you, in your heart, in your soul. You've given me everything, and I'll never forget you, not now, not ever." And with that, Gus closed his eyes, his final breath slipping away quietly. Hazel held his hand, not wanting to let go. She stayed there just a little longer, as if hoping he might wake up, hoping for one more moment, one more kiss, one more chance to say the things they never had the time to say. But she knew deep down that their time had come, and in that moment she promised herself she would live for both of them, for all the moments they had shared and for the love they had given each other. It would never fade, it would never be forgotten. Sometimes it feels like the people we love never really leave us. They might be gone physically, but their presence lingers. For Hazel, after Gus passed, it wasn't just his absence that haunted her. It was the memory of everything they had shared, the laughter, the quiet moments, the late-night talks. All of it replayed in her mind like a movie that wouldn't stop. But as time passed, Hazel learned to carry those memories with her, letting them shape who she was without letting them break her. Gus had shown her what it meant to truly live, to love without limits, and to find joy even in the darkest times. Even though he was no longer there to hold her hand, she felt his love every single day. Hazel didn't know how she could move forward without him. She didn't know how to keep going, when the one person who had made her feel alive was gone. Slowly, though, she began to realize that Gus hadn't just given her love, he had given her strength. The strength to face the world, to keep living, and to honor his memory with every step she took. Life has a funny way of teaching us things when we least expect it. After Gus passed, Hazel found herself holding on to something she hadn't thought she would need. One last letter, a letter Gus had written before his health took a turn for the worse, one that she hadn't read until now. She found it tucked away in the drawer of the bedside table, as if it had been waiting for her, waiting for the right moment. In that letter, Gus wrote about their time together, how he felt about her, and how much he wished they had more time. But more than that, he wrote about what he wanted for her future. "Hazel," the letter began, "I know this isn't how we planned it. I know we didn't get to say everything we wanted to, but I want you to know something. I want you to live. I want you to find happiness again, even if it seems impossible. You've given me so much, and I need you to take that love and use it to build a life that's worth living. Don't hold on to the past, no matter how painful. It's the future that matters now, the future you still have ahead of you. Promise me you'll live it to the fullest." Reading those words, Hazel felt a surge of emotions. She wanted to scream, to cry, to ask why they couldn't have had more time. But she also felt something else, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Gus's words had given her the strength to move forward, to live for both of them. And so Hazel promised herself that she would live for the love they had shared, live for the moments they had, even if they were too brief. She would carry Gus with her in every step,
in every memory, and in every future moment that awaited her.
Sometimes it's strange how life continues to move forward, even when we're still holding on to the past. Hazel never imagined that she could move forward after Gus. His love had been everything to her, and the thought of living a life without him felt impossible. But as the days passed, she began to realize that though he was gone, the love they shared could still guide her, could still give her strength. The grief didn't disappear, but it softened. It became a part of her, a part of the person she was becoming, and little by little, Hazel started to take the first steps toward a new beginning. She didn't know exactly what that meant, but she knew it meant living. It meant taking the lessons Gus had taught her and finding a way to use them to build a life that was full of meaning. She began with small things, painting again, something she had loved before but had set aside for years. She picked up a brush and let the colors flow, letting her emotions guide her as she created something new. And for the first time in a long time, Hazel felt the weight of grief lifting, replaced by a quiet, steady hope. Gus had shown her how to live. Now, it was her turn to embrace that lesson and move forward. Maybe the hardest thing of all was realizing that love doesn't just end with a goodbye. It doesn't fade away. It stays with you, becomes a part of you, and shapes who you are. For Hazel, that realization came slowly. At first, she thought that moving on meant forgetting, but the more she lived with Gus's memory, the more she understood. She didn't have to forget him to keep going. She had to carry him with her, in her heart, in everything she did. Every place she went, every new experience, she felt his love with her. He was in the laughter she shared with friends, in the quiet moments she took for herself, in the joy she found in life. She realized that she could live fully for both of them, using the strength Gus had given her to face the future. She wasn't living to forget. She was living to honor the love they had shared, the life they had built together. And in doing so, she knew that Gus would always be with her. No matter where she went, no matter what the future held, his love would never fade, and neither would she. Sometimes, life gives you moments you didn't expect, moments that help you find peace in the midst of all the chaos. For Hazel, it came one afternoon when she was walking through the park, lost in her thoughts. It had been months since Gus passed, and though the grief still weighed heavy on her heart, she had learned to live with it. As she walked, Hazel came across a small bench by a quiet pond. It was the same bench where she and Gus had sat on one of their first dates, laughing and talking, just enjoying each other's company. She hadn't been back there since, but something about the place called her. She sat down, and as she looked out over the water, memories of Gus came rushing back. But this time, it wasn't just sadness that filled her. It was a sense of peace, of comfort, as if Gus was still there with her, sharing this moment. She could almost hear his voice in the rustling of the leaves, in the soft murmur of the wind. Hazel smiled, letting the memories wash over her without the pain they had once carried. She realized then that the love she had for Gus wasn't gone. It was just transformed. Maybe the hardest part wasn't learning to live without Gus. It was learning to live for both of them. Gus had always believed in living life to the fullest, in embracing every moment, no matter how fleeting. And now it was Hazel's turn to carry that belief forward. With every step she took, with every new experience she embraced, she carried Gus with her. She found herself taking risks, pushing herself in ways she hadn't before. She started traveling again, something they had always talked about doing together, but never got the chance. She visited places they had dreamed of, felt his presence in every new place, in every new experience. Hazel had learned that life wasn't just about surviving, it was about living fully for both of them. And though the road ahead was still uncertain, she knew she was strong enough to face it. Gus had given her the strength to keep going, to keep loving, and now it was her turn to live for both of them. And in doing so, Hazel felt that Gus's love was still with her, guiding her every step of the way. You know, sometimes the hardest thing isn't moving on, it's finding peace in a world that feels empty without the one person you loved the most. Hazel had spent so much time carrying Gus's memory with her, that she hadn't noticed how the weight of it all was starting to shift. It wasn't that she was forgetting him. No, never that. But little by little, the pain that used to consume her started to fade. It wasn't as sharp anymore. It was softer, gentler. There were mornings when Hazel woke up feeling the warmth of the sun on her face and realized that for the first time in a long time, she wasn't consumed by grief. The memories were still there, but they didn't feel like a burden. Instead, they felt like a treasure, something she could hold in her heart without it breaking. She had found a way to live with them, to let them shape her without letting them control her. In those moments of peace, Hazel understood that Gus had taught her more than just how to love. He had shown her how to find peace in the midst of loss, how to keep going even when the future seemed uncertain. And as she took each step forward, she carried that lesson with her. Maybe it's not so much about moving on, but about moving forward. Hazel had spent so much time wondering how she could live without Gus, but now she understood. It wasn't about living without him, it was about living with him. In every choice, in every step, in every memory that still shaped her life. She had started taking more chances. She'd found herself laughing more, talking to people she hadn't spoken to in years, and doing things that used to bring her joy. She started traveling, going to places she had always dreamed of but had never had the courage to visit. And each time she felt Gus's presence beside her, in the way she looked at the world, in the way she learned to embrace it fully and without fear. Hazel knew her life wasn't perfect. There were still days when the grief would hit her, when the sadness would linger, but those days were fewer, and they didn't control her anymore. Gus had given her the tools to live fully, to keep moving forward, and to carry him with her in every step she took. She wasn't living to forget, she was living to remember the love they had, to remember the lessons he had taught her, and to honor him by living the life he had wanted for both of them.
So it's strange, isn't it? How we find new parts of ourselves when we least expect it. Hazel had always thought that life after Gus would be empty, that there would be a constant ache that she'd never be able to fill. But something changed. As time passed, Hazel realized that she wasn't just surviving, she was growing, evolving, finding new pieces of herself she hadn't known were there. She started to take chances, things she had never dared to do before. She signed up for a cooking class, something Gus would have laughed about but would have encouraged her to try. She went on hikes, something they had once talked about doing together, and for the first time it didn't hurt. It was peaceful. The mountains, the trees, the quiet. The world felt alive in a way she hadn't felt in so long. And for a brief moment, she didn't feel the emptiness. She felt connected to something bigger than herself. Hazel wasn't just carrying Gus's memory, she was living in a way that made him proud, living the life they had once dreamed of. And with each step forward, she felt his love beside her, guiding her, reminding her that no matter where life took her, she would always have him in her heart. Maybe that's the true meaning of love. It's not about holding on, but about living for what you had, for what you've shared. Hazel had spent so long trying to figure out how to keep going without Gus, but now she understood. She didn't need to hold on to the past. The past was a part of her, but it didn't have to control her future. The love they shared was something that lived on inside her, something that would always be with her, even when the road ahead seemed uncertain. As Hazel took each new step, she found herself more and more at peace. There were still hard days, days when the grief hit unexpectedly, but those days were fewer now. And even in the difficult moments, she knew that Gus's love was still with her, still guiding her, still teaching her how to live fully, how to appreciate each day, each breath. The life Hazel lived from that point on wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And that was enough. She had learned that love doesn't end when someone is gone. It lives on in every action, in every choice, in every moment we decide to embrace life. Gus had given her everything she needed to keep going, to live fully, and to carry his love with her always. And Hazel knew, deep in her heart, that this was how he would want her to live, honoring their love, embracing life, and finding joy in every moment. Sometimes the world has a way of surprising you, of showing you things you never expected to see. Hazel had spent so long wrapped in grief, thinking that life would always be colored by the absence of Gus. But as she moved forward, something incredible started to happen. She began to see the world in a new light.
It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about living. The small things began to matter again, the way the light filtered through the trees on her morning walks, the way a warm cup of coffee could make her smile, the quiet moments when she felt truly at peace. For the first time in a long time, Hazel felt connected to the world around her, not through the lens of loss, but through the lens of love. Gus had taught her how to live, how to appreciate the beauty in every moment. And now, she was learning how to see it in her own life. She didn't need to hold on to the past. Instead, she was learning to carry it with her, using it to shape the future she was now building. Well, sometimes we think that the loss of a loved one is something that will define us forever. But Hazel had learned something important. Grief doesn't have to define who you are. It's a part of you, yes, but it doesn't have to control your life. As time went on, Hazel found herself embracing life in a way she hadn't before. She started new projects, met new people, and even began to love again, in her own way. Gus had given her the tools to live fully, and now she was using them. She wasn't afraid of the future anymore. She knew that, no matter what came next, she had the strength to face it. And though Gus was no longer there in the way she wished he could be, his love continued to guide her. It was in every decision she made, in every moment she embraced. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was how he would want her to live, fully, without regret, carrying his love with her into every new chapter of her life. Sometimes, we find ourselves afraid of new beginnings, afraid of stepping into the unknown. But Hazel had learned that new beginnings weren't something to fear, they were something to embrace. Gus had taught her that life wasn't about holding on to the past, it was about moving forward, no matter how difficult it seemed, and finding beauty in the things that lay ahead. Hazel had begun to rediscover parts of herself that she hadn't known existed, hidden talents, new passions, and the strength to face challenges that once seemed impossible. She started volunteering at a local shelter, giving back to the community in ways that made her feel more connected to the world. She began writing, capturing her thoughts and feelings in a way that allowed her to process everything she had been through. It wasn't about forgetting Gus, not at all. It was about living with his memory in a way that honored him, in a way that allowed her to grow. She could feel him in every new experience, in every laugh she shared, in every quiet moment of reflection. He was still with her, not as a shadow, but as a guiding light, encouraging her to live for both of them. Maybe the most profound lesson Gus had ever taught Hazel was the power of love. Not just the love they shared, but the love that transcends time and space. Gus's love had never been about possession or control. It had been pure, selfless, and unconditional. It had given Hazel the strength to face her darkest days, and now it was giving her the courage to live fully. Hazel realized that love, in its truest form, doesn't fade. It doesn't disappear when someone leaves us. It stays with us, woven into the very fabric of who we are. Gus's love was now a part of her, and in that love, Hazel found the strength to keep moving forward. She didn't need to look back anymore. The past had shaped her, but it didn't define her. With every step Hazel took, she carried Gus's love forward, letting it guide her in every decision, in every moment. She had learned that love wasn't just about what we receive, it was about what we give and how we choose to live because of it. And in that, Hazel found a peace that had eluded her for so long. Well, sometimes the hardest part of living is learning how to let go. Hazel had always believed that letting go meant forgetting, that it meant losing the person she loved. But over time, she realized that letting go wasn't about erasing Gus from her heart. It was about finding peace in the love they had shared and accepting that it was enough. She didn't need to hold on to the pain of his absence anymore. She didn't need to carry the weight of grief like a burden. Instead, she learned to carry his memory like a treasure, something precious and beautiful, something that would always be with her. Gus had given her the tools to live, and now it was her turn to embrace those tools, to build the life he had wanted for both of them. Hazel understood now that she didn't have to hold on to the past in order to honor it. She could move forward, living fully with Gus's love as her guide. It wasn't an easy process,
But with every passing day, Hazel felt the peace settling in her heart. She was letting go, but she was also living. And in that, she found the freedom to be herself again. Maybe, sometimes we think that the people we lose are gone forever. But Hazel had learned something different. That love doesn't die when someone leaves. It lives on in the way we choose to live, in the way we carry them with us, in the choices we make because of them. Hazel had come to understand that living fully didn't mean forgetting. It meant embracing everything she had learned from Gus, all the love he had shown her, and all the strength he had given her. She had started to chase her dreams, to do the things she had once put aside. She had found new passions, met new people, and discovered a side of herself that had been hidden for so long. And with every step she took, Hazel knew she was living for both of them. Gus would always be with her, in the love she gave to the world, in the choices she made, in the way she chose to live. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving, and in that thriving, Hazel honored the love they had shared, knowing that it was enough. It had always been enough.
Sometimes, strength doesn't come from loud declarations or grand gestures. It comes from the quiet moments, the ones when no one is watching, when you're alone with your thoughts, and you make the decision to keep going. For Hazel, that quiet strength had become a part of who she was. It wasn't something she had to force. It had grown naturally, like a seed planted deep in her soul, nurtured by her love for Gus and the life they had shared. In those quiet moments, when she would sit by the window and watch the world go by, Hazel felt a sense of calm she hadn't known before. The grief was still there, lingering like a shadow, but it no longer had the power to control her. She had learned to live with it, to let it be a part of her, without letting it define her. And in that acceptance, Hazel found a kind of peace that allowed her to move forward, with Gus's love always by her side. She realized that strength wasn't about pushing through everything without feeling. It was about allowing yourself to feel, to grieve, to love, and still find the courage to keep moving forward. And in that, Hazel had discovered the truest form of strength, one that was quiet, steady, and built on love. Maybe the most beautiful part of life is that even after everything we go through, there's always something to look forward to. Hazel had been so afraid of the future after Gus passed, afraid that she would never be able to move forward without him. But now, she understood. The future wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace, to fill with the love and the lessons Gus had given her. Saw your eye enormous matu anna lovrum. Hazel had begun to open herself to new possibilities, things she had once thought were impossible. She had started traveling again, visiting places she and Gus had always dreamed of seeing. She had made new connections, rebuilt friendships, and discovered a new purpose in life. She wasn't doing these things to forget him, she was doing them to honor him, to honor the love they had shared, and to live the life they had both imagined together. The future was no longer something Hazel feared. It was something she welcomed with open arms, knowing that she had everything she needed to face it. Gus had given her that gift, the gift of hope, of strength, and of love that would never fade.
Well, sometimes it's easy to forget how powerful love can be. It's not just the joy or the passion, it's the quiet strength it gives us. The way it sustains us through even the toughest times. Hazel had spent so long focused on the pain of losing Gus that she hadn't realized how much love could heal. Gus's love hadn't just stayed with her, it had helped her heal, helped her find a way to move forward even when the world felt too heavy. It wasn't just in the big moments, the grand gestures, it was in the small things, the comfort she found in a friend's hug, the peace she felt when she'd sit down to write in her journal, the warmth of the sun on her face during her morning walks. Every day, Hazel felt Gus's love surrounding her, not as a shadow of the past, but as a part of her present, guiding her, reminding her of what really mattered. In those moments, Hazel realized that love doesn't just help us live, it helps us heal. It gives us the strength to face the world with open hearts, to love others, and to find joy even after loss. And in that realization, Hazel felt a deep sense of peace, a peace that Gus had always wanted for her, a peace that she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Maybe love is something we pass on. It's not just the feelings we have in the moment, but the way it shapes who we become. Gus had shown Hazel what it meant to love without limits, without fear. And now, Hazel understood that the legacy of their love wasn't something that ended when Gus passed. It was something that would continue, that would be passed on, through every choice she made, through every person she touched. Hazel had started giving back in ways she hadn't thought possible. She volunteered at a local shelter, reaching out to those who needed love and compassion. She spoke at events, sharing her story, inspiring others to find hope even in the darkest times. She found new ways to live the love that Gus had shown her, in everything she did. And in those moments, Hazel felt him beside her, encouraging her, reminding her of the power of love. The love she had with Gus was more than just a memory. It was a force that continued to shape her life, to guide her in the choices she made, to help her live with purpose and passion. And as Hazel moved forward, she knew that love was the most important thing she could pass on. It was Gus's gift to her, and now it was hers to give to the world.
Sometimes, the quiet moments are the ones that speak the loudest. Hazel had learned to embrace those moments, the stillness of a quiet morning, the peace of an evening spent reflecting, the simple comfort of knowing that she was okay. She no longer felt the urgency to fill every moment with noise or activity. She had found something deeper, something more important. The grief still lingered, of course. There were days when it felt like it would overwhelm her, when the weight of Gus's absence was too much to bear. But in those moments, Hazel had learned to be kind to herself, to give herself the time and space to feel, to grieve and to heal. She had learned that strength wasn't always about pushing through or pretending everything was okay. Sometimes, strength came from simply allowing yourself to be, to sit with your emotions, and to find the courage to keep going, no matter how hard it was. And in that, Hazel had discovered a quiet strength that had always been within her, waiting to be recognized. Maybe the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the permission to move forward, to take everything we've learned, everything we've experienced, and use it to create something beautiful. Hazel had spent so long wondering if she could ever be happy again after losing Gus. But now she understood. Happiness wasn't about forgetting what had happened. It was about using the love she had shared with Gus to fuel her own life. Hazel wasn't the same person she had been when Gus was alive. She had changed, she had grown, and in that growth, she had found a deeper sense of purpose. She started a new chapter of her life, one that was filled with meaning, with love, and with the courage to keep moving forward. She knew there would be hard days, days when the pain of losing Gus would feel fresh again, but she also knew that she had the strength to keep going, to keep living, and to carry his love with her always. And as Hazel embraced her new life, she realized that Gus's love had never really left her. It had become a part of her, a part of the person she was, and the person she was still becoming. She wasn't moving on from Gus. She was moving forward with him by her side, in her heart, in every step she took. So, as we come to the end of this story, I want to take a moment to share something with you. You know, love, in its truest form, is more than just an emotion. It's a force. It's what keeps us going, what gives us the strength to face the hardest days. Hazel's journey wasn't easy, and neither is ours. Sometimes, we all face loss. We all go through moments when it feels like the world is too much to bear. But just like Hazel, we learn, we grow, and we move forward. And that's what love teaches us, isn't it? It doesn't leave us when we lose someone. It stays quietly within us, guiding us, giving us the courage to live the lives we're meant to live. Gus may no longer be with Hazel physically, but his love continues to shape her every step, and that love, in a way, is eternal. So, to all of you listening, remember, love doesn't fade. It remains in the small moments, in the memories we hold dear, and in the ways we choose to live. It's okay to grieve, it's okay to feel lost sometimes, but know that love will help you find your way. And when you do, you'll realize that even the hardest goodbyes are not the end, they're just part of the journey. Thank you, all of you, for being here with me today, for listening to this story. I hope it resonated with you, that it reminded you of the power of love, of the strength that's inside all of us. And remember, no matter where life takes you, love is always there, guiding you, supporting you, and helping you find peace. So, until next time, take care, live fully, and never forget the ones you love. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.